We got to break Cereba up. Cereba is a cartel. We have to own our grid because we paid for it. You had it too long. That's number one. We need to control the purchasing of fuel because we pay for it. We should be in charge of buying it. The fuel companies, you better buckle up too. Jackson Point pipeline have to be reverted back to the ownership of the country. Oh, Mario, you can't tell them how to operate their business. Well, yes, we can. Having this idea that you're going to impose what's best because of what the law tells you can do will cause an uprising in this country that you've never seen before. My children are going to be saddled with the debt of a billionaire so that he can have his name printed on everything we got around here. Because, let me tell you something, this is Dart Island. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Word of Mouth. Today is Monday. What's today's date? The 17th of April, 2023. So we are on the last leg of this month, countdown to the end of the month. I think it's only 29 days in April. I could be wrong. Couple of things I just want to touch on before I get started. One, you all know there's been a lot of stuff swirling around the media in regards to the situation at the Carifta Games. Again, it's unfortunate that we're having this conversation. For the life of me, I don't really understand why in the world we find ourselves in these positions. Certainly, I don't think all the details came out in the beginning, and that's a large part of why it was so much speculation, apology letters being issued, all this foolishness. It doesn't change the fact that one of our athletes or ex-athletes got escorted off the field because of some confusion of whether they were supposed to be there or not. Now, I'm going to say very little on it simply because I don't know the details, and I know a lot of the media houses that are reporting on it, they don't know the details either. You know, it seems as if everybody just lopsidedly jumped on the bandwagon about, oh, how bad it looked. Yeah, it looked bad, no doubt. But the reasons for certain things happening, we need to be clear on that before we go casting our opinion or judging things, you know what I mean? But it seems like that's the type of environment that we live in where we just decide to voice our opinion based on lack of information. But again, I hope that they get that resolved. I mean, it's already done. You can't take back what took place. The problem is that we need to figure out why that happened and if we can put some preventative measures in place to avoid it from happening in the future. You know, we can't control the Bahamian authorities and how they handle situations like that. Was it the association, the sports or the athletic association from the Cayman Islands? Was it their job to report certain things? Yes, it's their job. Were they at fault? I don't think so, because from what I understand, and again, I'm just stating the things that are happening around the media and whatever. From what I understand, Ms. Barnes wasn't sanctioned to be there, but somehow through some sort of connections by whoever, she was able to get these passes, whatever the case is. And then when it was brought to the awareness of the Bahamian athletic authorities, whatever, they had then had the person removed. Now, I don't understand why is it that you know it's an assassination of a person's character. Oh, say okay, so if it was a mistake on her part and whoever were involved, fine. Let's just get it happened, it done. If anybody should be issuing an apology, I think it's them in regards to putting the island in that position. You know, it's really unfortunate that we let our egos get ahead of what's important, right? And this seems to be the issue here. Now, again, I'm not going to speak at length about it because I don't know all the details. I know Lacey's father. I don't know her that well, but I know her dad. But I think that somebody needs to just come clean, issue a formal release and clear the air so that we can learn from this mistake and make sure that it never happens again or anything like that happens again. So, We all know that the final 2 years of this election cycle, the government got to come up with their strategic policy plan. That's going to be rolled out in the next couple of weeks or probably sooner. I'm not sure. Now, what's going to be interesting about this new plan for the next 2 years? Because remember, ladies and gentlemen, the political measuring stick is out now. So when you look at all the things in which the PAC government and its ministers are going to want, we have to take a very keen look at the newly introduced projects as opposed to the projects that are ongoing now, which they started from the beginning. So we don't want the country and the people to get political whiplash from the inability of politicians um, capability of seeing what's important, because I've seen where projects get stopped midway simply because government change, and the only people that really gets the impact of that is the people. The only impact or the negative impact from that is to the people, because one, we paying for it regardless of which government implement it, and number two, if it's an infrastructural upgrade or if it's a school upgrade, whatever the case is, the benefits is for the people, not for the political persons who put it together, right? But we find where political mileage has taken precedent over the priority and the needs of the people and the country itself. I see where they're trying to get $50 million to build a high school in Cameron Brack. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just be the first person to call a spade, right? Miss Juliana, I love you to death. I think you're a good person, but it seems like you're now becoming in a neck and neck race as being one of the worst politicians that's in the PAC government right now. And I can say that openly, freely, and without any fear of contradiction, because I really don't care who don't like to be told the truth. Politicians need to be held accountable for any action that they do, not because they're a man or a woman, right? It doesn't matter. If you have taken the time out of your life to run for politics and become elected, you need to do your job. Otherwise, get out. Remove yourself. Just like how you put yourself in position, you can take yourself out of position. Because when Miss Julie was in charge of certain portfolios, we saw where things happen, right? They paved the entire Cameron Brack. I'm not saying that Cameron Brack didn't need paving, I never said that. What I'm saying is that how is it that you can pave the whole island, but you're not all running water to every household in Cameron Brack? I heard on Mr. Oric Connor show this morning, for the record, I heard a Cameron Brack man call in. Now you guys listen to me real good. Miss Julie, I hope your handlers and all of your PR people, I know the PAC government gonna hear about this. They'll let you know. Maybe a little bird will chip on your shoulder and tell you that Mario Rankin said this, right? There's a gentleman that called in the radio this morning. That's what motivated me to call in. And he said he has to water his plants. He's a registered backyard farmer for the past 10 years in Cameron Brack. But he got water his plants with bottled water. He got buy bottled water or get bottled water to water his plants because he did not want to run water to his house. We talking about Cameron Brack, ladies and gentlemen, with less than 4,000 population. Or I might be, I might be way off. I might be way less than that. Last time I checked, it was 2,800. But you telling me that a politician, regardless if it's Miss Juliana or Mose Kokorno, regardless, but they're the two elected members for the BRAC for the better part of 15 years. So we can't point the finger at no other person other than them, right? Miss Julia paved every road, put a paving company in the BRAC, right? But they didn't see the necessity and the need to have running water to every household. Water authority is a water authority, that's an authority of government. Why they don't have running water to every house in the BRAC? Tell me. But you gotta pave roads to every house in the BRAC. And now Miss Julie is the deputy premier and the minister of education, and now she want to build a $50 million high school in the BRAC. But I can tell you, Miss Julie, I can tell you that. I can tell you right now, that's not happening. Cameron Brack got a whole lot of other infrastructure things that are far more needed than a $50 million high school. I'm not telling you that your high school don't need some renovations. And I'm not telling you that that's not something you should be doing. But to build a $50 million high school in Cameron Brack, Why would you need a $50 million high school in Cameron Brack? Now, now, it is no secret. It is no secret that the Cameron Brack High School and the Cameron Brack learning system have produced a lot of highly educated persons on these islands who are now contributing and participating in our island on high levels with high level jobs. So I'm super proud to know that Cameron Brack can produce that level of education. So their school may need some upgrading, and I support that. But they don't need a $50 million high school for what reason? You better get some running water to all them people down there watering their plants with bottled water. That way you need to be prioritizing. Mose has been the deputy premier for 2 terms. Juliana was the premier for half a term, and now she's a deputy premier for half a term. And the minister, and you telling me that you can't get running water in 15 years to every house in Cameron Brack? You should be ashamed of yourself, both of them. But you know why? You know why? Because two of them don't live in the Brack. Mo is rarely there, and Miss Julie, you don't live in the Black. You live in Cayman. I suggest both of you go read chapter 4 of Machiavelli's book, where he talk about political science, where he talk about being elected but not living in the neighborhood that he was elected in. He talked about being removed from those very same people. And he said the only way you have a real understanding of the people that you represent is if you live where those people live. Otherwise, you lose touch. You don't know. There's a disconnect. So go read his book. Maybe you'll learn something. The problem is that you got people who get to a position where they think automatic by default that they're smarter than you because they're elected. Because we got some of the dumbest people elected in this country. That's a fact. And I don't care who like it. Facts are facts. Opinions are everywhere. You got various opinions. There's one thing those opinions surround though is the fact. You may change your opinion or there may be a difference of opinion, but one thing that never changes is the facts. And numbers don't lie. People lie, but not numbers. I just want to know how Miss Julia could sit down and look herself in the face in a mirror or sit down and look other people in the face and think she's doing a good job by suggesting we're going to build a $50 million high school in Cameron Brack. We're going to not get running water to everybody. I mean, this Cameron Brack we talking about, they could put running water authority is currently changing every single piece of pipe that been put down in Cayman in the late 1980s, early 90s. They now changing systematically every pipe on Grand Cayman, right? But you telling me that they can't put running water to every house in the Brack? Miss Julia, when the last time you been to the landfill in Cameron Brack? When was the last time you been to the landfill? And this DART consortium has now excluded Cameron Brack and Little Cayman because they have been systematically purchasing those two islands. They bought Brack Power and Light. I don't know why Mo's insisted on them buying it. Anybody else who put in a bid, they didn't even look at it. They insisted that DART buy it. They made sure DART got it, so they got electricity. The consortium had the landfill, excluded it. They bought up a pile of land in Little Cayman. Where does it end? When does it stop? But for an island that only have 2,800 to 3,000 people, it's being poorly ran infrastructurally. Oh, they got nice roads. Don't get me wrong. Ms. Julia made sure of that. But the last time I checked, water and food is far more important than roads. Oh yeah. So, and I don't even want to get into the cargo situation. I don't even want to get into that because the prices they paying in the Brack is ridiculous. The prices they pay for everything is ridiculous. And in mind, their fuel is duty free. Their fuel in the Brack is duty free. I hope you all know. Now, some of the things that I think that are pressing is that we are constantly having to live in the consequences of poor political judgment, poor political decisions, poor political implementations of things that are affecting the general public, right? So we live in their consequence. The consequences that we live in is because of the things that they do or don't do. And we need to understand the importance of that. I heard McKeever on the radio last week talking about the East West Arterial Road. That's one thing. Then I heard all the talk about the Regen project. That's another thing. Then I hear all the talk about the CUC going green initiative. That's another thing. Ladies and gentlemen, understand, that it is far more than beneath the eye. And there's way more than what they're not telling you, right? There's far more to this thing that's what's going on. And we need to be vigilant. We need to be completely aware of our surroundings. We need to make sure that we understand the impacts of all things that they're about to implement. So when we talk about that new strategic policy plan coming out that they're gonna roll out, it's coming out after their government surplus announcement. And I just want to know how they're gonna manage the people's money. I'm very interested because I'm gonna take a keen look at how and what they're proposing and why they're proposing it. So at the end of the day, we're going to see the political mileage come out now because this is the last 2 years of their term. So they got to do everything that's tangible in order to make the people feel like they're getting their job done or they're fulfilling their manifesto, right? And we've seen where that backfired in the past many times. I mean, the PPM government spent this country into financial ruins, building building bypasses and schools and all sorts of capital projects during the worst recession in the last 100 years. But it didn't work. That actually backfired on them. They got ejected. McKeever won that election, 2009. Yeah, Julia was part of that too. You know, I just find it very disheartening that we have politicians who are in the position to pull the trigger or implement things that are needed and that are fundamentally affecting our sustainability here in the Cayman Islands. Government got one job, and that is to create a sustainable environment for all its people. I don't understand why, for the life of me, these people are not, one, being held accountable for the things that they do and don't do, and two, why are they not doing things that are in the best interest, the obvious things? I mean, you all hear me pounding on Ween all the time. I don't do it because I have something personal against Ween. Ween is the goddamn premier of the Cayman Islands. So yes, I need to focus on him. And excuse my language. But we need to focus on him. You are the so-called leader of our country that we have to live in. So yes, I have to be critical of everything you do and don't do. You talk about an anti-bullying law, but yet you got one of the news platforms that goes out of their way to tear down people in Cayman. You know how many libel statements she say on her show every week? If I was one of those people that were interested in filing a lawsuit, I could easily sue her and win. Just off of what she said recently. She said, and I quote, that DART gave me money to clean up Cayman and I misappropriated the funds. Nothing could be further from true. In fact, that's not even remotely true. But you see, because people are afraid of ending up on Mall Road, then they take the hiatus and they run away. But not Mario, I don't really care. You understand? We already live in an infested society of rumors, right? Cayman is the rumor capital of the world. Yeah, understand that. And we are the best ran banana republic I've ever seen. So at the end of the day, when you have a first world status with third world policies, that is a banana republic. That is the definition of a banana republic. So, so make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, when you have a premier who's talking about anti-bullying laws, he should be ashamed of himself. He's a disgrace. He is. You can't put an anti-bullying law in place. You can't implement it yet. You can't put a recycling law in place. You haven't done it yet. You can't put a sexual harassment in the workplace, well, period, in place. You haven't done that yet. But you brought back Jennifer Ahorn to spearhead a project in which she ran aground the first time. You brought back a team of people. You took ministries. You reshuffled the whole thing so that you can be in the driver's seat to continue to run the inefficient, incompetent job that you're doing. I don't get these things. I don't understand. I just don't understand why these things are allowed to happen. And the people just sit down and don't have nothing to say because they're afraid to be victimized by the political system. because there's somebody that is in charge of some ministry that affects that person's livelihood. That's how sick we are here in the Cayman Islands. Is where we allowed to make a person starve to death just because they don't politically align with us. And people don't understand the importance of unity. Whether we disagree on a policy or on anything, we must understand that there's common ground. When we had that protest about legalizing, putting a law in place to force people to take the vaccine if you want work permit in Cayman Islands, when we had that protest, we in Panama didn't even have the decency to come out and address the people and ask what the issues were and listen to them. But you know why he didn't do that? You know why he couldn't come to terms with that? It's because he don't have the ability. He do not have the ability to address every issue this country faces, and that was an issue. He couldn't address it because of his being a narcissistic person he is. He didn't feel the need that he had to address it because we didn't know what we were talking about. So therefore, he was wasting his time. And then we had the Attorney General, right? Imagine, imagine our legal advisor to the government sat there and said nothing, went along with the show. That's only because he knew that his tender is cutting short. He knew that his time for retirement is on the horizon. He just playing ball, turning the blind eye. But who pays that price? The people. I can tell you all this right now. That vaccine has affected more people adversely than it has helped. Facts. You don't see every single week, every single day in Cayman, somebody is dying you and your eyebrows raised and your jaw drop. Geez, I didn't even know that person was sick. And they always associated, oh, well, they had this or they had that and they had that. But the reality is, if we were to really investigate this thing, we'll find out the reality and the truth of it all. But the government here are not interested in that. They're not interested in that. Believe me when I tell you the truth will come out, and it's coming out all over the world. The problem is that our government, and we got ex-premier who was knighted for how he handled COVID-19. Things that was handed to him, not things that he created. No. But at the end of the day, we talking about the same government that told you that don't go in salt water. You imagine you got a flu, but you must stay away from salt water and the sun, the two elements that kill the flu. Who came up with that idea? Stay inside, save the world, save your neighbor. Stay inside. Going for a swim on 7 Mile Beach or in salt water is putting who at risk? The jellyfish, lionfish. I don't heard of no fish catching COVID yet. So who are we putting at risk? This is all of the hypocrisy that we've done in this island in the past 2.5, 3 years. These are all the things that we have done on a news press conference platform every day at 2 p.m. They got up there and repeated themselves and just kept plugging on garbage after garbage after garbage. I can't believe that that's actually a staple in our history now. That's a stain in our history that'll always be there, because our leaders at the time didn't have the political ambition to do what was right. They didn't. But at the end of the day, it's the people that suffers the consequences of bad decisions, poor decisions, and lack thereof. These are the things that grossly impact the general populace. And these are the things that we don't talk about because we're afraid to be victimized, ostracized, gated out, and discarded. Because it happened. It happens all the time. It's a painful reality that we suffer here in the Cayman Islands, victimization. Nobody wants to speak out because they know that they'll be victimized. The majority of the people who have a lot to say and even may know some things that will be critical to how we move forward and fixing these things are afraid to do so because politicians and their extended arm of force and the proverbial leverage that they have on people have suppressed people into being sheep and being quiet. They don't say nothing because they're afraid. Me, quite honestly, the only thing left for them to do is kill me. And I say that very loosely only because that's the only thing left for them to do because they've done everything else they could. I can tell you that. They changed the law. Listen, they have done some things. I can assure you. But I don't really have that fear anymore. At one time I did. But when you put your foot in that arena and you get both feet in, and you feel it and you get it, and then it becomes a thing of the norm. You become immune to it. That's why I don't depend on government to put food on the table. I don't, because the minute you do that, you've just undermined your ability to be sustainable. Because no government is going to ever do anything that's sustainable for you if it doesn't have the political mileage in which they need to be elected. Sorry, ain't happening. We've seen politicians in the same district fight over one project because each one of them wanted to have the title or the entitlement of being the person that done it. And the only people that really suffer is the people that are in between. They don't really suffer. Their political egos may get bruised or hurt or tarnished, but the implementation of whatever that project is the benefit of the people, not them. But they use it as a political football, and they do it all the time. We need to better educate ourselves on who we elect and why we elect them. When a person show up to your door with a manifesto, don't just look at the glossy side of it. Read the manifesto. Look at all of the goals in which they want to accomplish if they're elected. And then you go through one by one and ask each question specific to each item by simply saying, oh, you want better education in the Cayman Islands? Please explain to me and my family how you plan to do that. Oh, you want a better road system? You want a fairer system? Each item on their manifesto, drill them, ask them, tell them how they plan to accomplish it. What is their plan? Anybody could write up a wish list of things they want done if they're elected, and call it a manifesto. But go back and look at the track record of many politicians who have actually executed 100% of their manifesto. Go and look, or even try to, because the Hansards will reflect what your political ambitions are. So let's just take Austin Harris, for instance, and I'm not picking on Austin Harris. I'm just using him as an example. How many motions did Austin Harris put forward when he was elected? Go and count them, right? All right, now, if anybody who knows Austin Harris, how many years he beat up his gum on Rooster, talking about all the fundamental issues that he saw wrong with Cayman. So why he never championed any of those things? Not once. And that's probably why he was a one-term politician. Now, there are so many things that we need to focus on. There's so many things that we need to make sure that we don't let get too far down the road, because once it get to a certain point, there's no bringing it back. It's then we have to adapt to that system. We have to accept it, right? You see all of this talk about PR and all of these lawyers now up in arms about how the government wanted to reform PR and change the structure. The point system is unconstitutional and all this other foolishness, right? Mind, it wasn't unconstitutional when the government didn't suggest changes. Nobody had a problem with it. But now all of a sudden, when the government suggested that there need to be some reform, then all of a sudden now there's some things in it that been sitting there for the last 30 years that are unconstitutional. Are you kidding me? That's where we have come in this country, on these islands, where we've allowed certain cultural differences to become a part of the mechanism that makes policies. If a person wasn't happy with the country they're from and they came to Cayman to live and work and stay for the rest of their life, then why you try and turn our country into the country you ran from? And we see it all too often here in Cayman. I had an opportunity to speak to two people just last night, and it was a very refreshing thing to hear. And it was a situation where two ladies is here on a business trip for a conference, and they left the hotel and went to a restaurant and forgot their wallets and stuff. And while in the restaurant, two local people went there and paid their tab for them, helped them out. So I believe that it's that sort of environment that have been a large part of the attraction to Cayman. The very laid back, we demonstrate a lot of hospitality, and we're nice people, right? But when you have other people from different backgrounds that are in the realm of, oh, I want to come to Cayman to get what I can get because I can't do it back where I'm from. And this last week, I've had encounters with both sides of that coin. I was over at Legends watching basketball, and there was a gentleman there from Canada. I've spoke about this Friday, and I found him outside talking to these two very young guys, and they were looking at my car, and we started talking. We got engaged, and then he started talking, and I realized that he's the type of people, he's the type of person that this island shouldn't be attracted. He's the type of people that this island should be gating out and guarding out, because there's better people that we can allow into our island and be a part of the landscape and the fabric. But when you have persons like that who becomes parasites and then all of a sudden grow this entitlement more than you as a local, it really irks my soul. It gets to the bottom of my patience. So I told him straight up, I said, you don't really live for Caymanians. Oh, you employ 19 Caymanians, so I'm Caymanian? No. You don't let them profit sharing where you profit sharing, so you're not for them. You need them to do your mining operation, to mine all the work that gives you your bonuses. Just admit it. Oh yeah, they might have a good paying job and pay their bills and they got children. Yeah, that's fine. But where do they go beyond that? Yeah, he couldn't answer that question. He quickly got offended and then started to say stupidness, which I obviously didn't tolerate. Let's check the comments right quick. And I can tell you, Cayman is a lovely place to come and live or visit, whatever you choose to do. The problem is that people come here, and when they become a part of the fabric, they want to try to change it, right? And that's largely the problem we're having right now. Listen, I tell you, we got over 130 different nationalities on our island, so nobody can ever accuse us of being anti-foreigner. That right there is the most unfounded statement by anybody who ever say it, because that means they're not properly informed of the situation, right? Because we're not anti-foreigner. We're just pro sustainability for Caymanians just as much as you are pro sustainability of wherever you're from. And it's clear that we obviously working with everybody, because just take a good look around. There's nothing against the law for you to fly in here, buy a piece of land, and build a house. Anybody could do it once you have the financial capability to do it. You can do it. You can't do it in Bermuda if you're not from there. I'm just simply saying that we have to tighten up our belt. We have to make sure that the end product is something that we can all live with and that we're all comfortable with. And right now, the way that it's going, it's not going to end up in the end product where everybody agrees with. It's not. It's just not. It's not sustainable for the local people. It's just not. Let me just check the comments. I'm sure Jonathan is on here talking about a bridge, but we'll see in a minute. Um, Mary. Well, no, that's truly sad. Yeah. Next election, we go and speak out. We need to get you guys in the BRAC need to vote out Juliana and vote out Mose. They're useless. That is my opinion. Just checking the comments and then we'll get back right quick. I have 10 more minutes before I gotta sign off. By having a very small population, not enough consumers, utility companies are not making enough money. However, now this, yeah, but this, but I just want to add to that person's comment, right? It says, and I totally agree, right? Business models are based on volume and whatever, and the smaller the population is, the higher the goods are going to be. We're not talking. Well, I wasn't referring to what water costs and Kimabraka high costs all across the board, but let's just see. Let me just finish read her comment before I say anything. It says, however, now this small population is using too much water each year. It's dry around time. It's what? It is dry around this time, and when you use more water for garden, but only this year running short. My questions are: some decide in minds feel the Black Water Authority also should be private. Oh God, I hope they don't do that. Just asking. I keep wondering if there are any more. Well, I don't know. I don't know if it was I don't know if it was ever entertained to be privatized. I wouldn't put anything past anything or any government. But what I will say to you is this: in regards to the small population, the small consumer base, and utility companies and whatnot are not really highly motivated on certain things. I don't disagree, but what I'm saying is that, do you know that it is your constitutional right to have water, have access to water? It's, yeah, it's your right. So there's not something that a politician have a choice in. It needs to be done. It's your constitutional right. But how do we interpret the Constitution? Because clearly some politicians interpret in the way that they see. Because if they had interpreted in the way in which we see it, they would have running water. And whether or not Kim and Brack have enough water or runs out of water, you know, the well system and this and then you purify water. They can be, listen, there are a lot of methodologies that can be put in place that the Brack could have water endlessly. But because we decide to mine the side of the bluff out so we can send aggregate to Cayman for construction, instead of building water catchment basins and different things that are sensible and more environmentally friendly, we don't do those things, you see. So I just don't understand why is it that for a small island like the Brac, that they're being always treated as if it doesn't matter. And then now Julie won't build a $50 million school that doesn't fix all of the other fundamental issues, the landfill and the disposal of medical waste and all of the stuff that's there. All that stuff need to be fixed, and you don't need $50 million to fix it. So, I mean, they need to get their priorities straight over there. And right now, the Bracas need to step up to the plate, because I know you got a lot of them that watching and a lot of them just fed up now. They need to step up to the plate now and vote these people out. They need to be voted out. Now, do you guys have candidates? We need some young people. We need some young Kim and Bracas to get involved, right? And run for politics and take that to the next state, to the next step, to the next stages. That's what we need in the Brac. Jonathan, what you say now? I know you're on you. Yes, but I still think we need a bridge. I love your consistency, bro. PR given, but they don't collect the fees. Again, that's another problem. A few years back, you're right. You're absolutely right, Andrea. They had a huge issue with back payments, and people got their PRs and never paid their bills. We should just revoke them off and send them off this island, as far as I'm concerned. But you see, a lot of people don't really pay attention to what's really taking place, right? Because hey, and the thing that I really find comical, right, is when a when a politician assumes that you agrees with him and say these things on a public platform as if he has the support, and he doesn't, or she doesn't. You know, I the reason why we're hearing about this $50 million high school now, because remember last week McKeeva said West Bay needed a high school. I I'm just dumbfounded as to why, how many high schools this island need. I had an opportunity to talk to someone who's in the education department on my drive in here this morning, because she heard me on Radio Cayman talking about the mass gross failure of Mose and Julie for taking proper care of Kim and Brack, little Cayman. And she asked me a question that I had brought up years ago on when we won Rooster. And the question was is that when we look at the school system here in the Cayman Islands, the government school system, right? Now imagine this, right? The government got way more resources. Our government school system got more resources than private schools, because we subsidize some of Cayman students that go to private schools. So we subsidize that. So clearly we got more resources. We got more land space occupied for schools than private schools. And and one would think, with more resources and more facilities, that you could probably produce either equal level education or better education, right? So something not adding up. More land space, more buildings, more money and resources, but less education, less quality of education. So I remember when I was in high school, and I remember this very, very distinctively because I remember going into the class one day and taking in what was happening. We used to have a a set called special aid. Special ed were the students who didn't fully comprehend, couldn't read and write properly, whatever the case was. They just needed special attention, right? I still think to this day that special ed is a derogatory term, right? It it's a demeaning term, I believe, in my personal opinion. If it were me, I would change it to something else. But then we need to put the emphasis on prioritizing it, right? So I find it very hypocritical for any minister of education from the 1980s when I was in high school to this day, because they've done nothing about it. It still exists in the schools today, right? How is it that you're going to have a group of people who took a test that deemed them to be special needs? When I say special needs, special ed, where they struggle, right, with their comprehension of education, the reading and the writing and the math and all these different things, right? How is it that we are aware of these students to the point where we create a division, a set for them called special ed. So you have set 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and then set 5 and 6 for special ed. So how is it that you have a identifying mechanism in the school system that identify the children that need the most help, but yet get the least help? In fact, get no help at all. They're put in a class where they can play cards and dominoes until they have occupied that space for the period of time that says you got over 72% attendance, and here's a diploma, have a nice life. And we don't know whether you're going to participate, and we don't know what level you're going to participate on, but we just doing our job by getting you in and out of school. That is the gross failure of education in this country. So if we could identify that these children are struggling academically, then why is it that we never done anything to fix that? Why is it that we didn't spend every dollar we had to ensure that those students that had that disability, that they had the proper system and teachers and mechanisms to help them become the best person or best people or the best educated people they could have become to be better participators in our society? Now, I'm not telling you that we don't need cashiers and we don't need gardeners and we don't need laborers. I never said that. And their job is equal as important. But if you're telling me that in the Cayman Islands High School, where there is a person that is in set 1 and 2, who has access to all the academic qualities that will give them the academic tools and qualification to go into society to get a job that can let them generate their own personal small wealth and pay their bills and live a fairly decent, sustainable life. You telling me that in the same school, in the same compound, you have institutions that can provide for them, but you don't have zero that can provide for the children that have already been identified by the system and the grade system and the point system for the entry level test, that they don't get the resources. So, Miss Juliana, I can look you squarely in the face this morning. Do you have any program in place currently or in the past that address the special aid needs of our students today? You're the Minister of Education, and you must know about the special aid set in school. So why is it the children that need the most help get the least help? It's almost like the person that works harder than anybody else. The hardest worker get the smallest pay. Facts. The people who, listen to me good, on the listening. The people who answers the phone at a dentist office makes more money than the person that lay blocks and mix cement and cut your grass and cash you out at the grocery store and cash you out at the pharmacy. The person that answers the phone as a receptionist at a dental office makes more money than those people. And let me ask you a question. How hard do you think it is to pick up the phone and say, hello, good morning, XYZ, as opposed to the guy that got mixed cement in a wheelbarrow? Or got cut your grass and trim your trees, babysit your children, mop your house, polish your cabinets? So the people who work the hardest get the least amount of appreciation, not only by morals, but by financial gain. But that seemed to be okay. Those are the things that we accept. Those are the things that we don't pay attention to. And then we wonder why society is struggling. We wonder why the guy next door is saying, hey, you think you can limit $25, $30, $50 to buy some food? No. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a major problem in this country, and no politician are really spearheading anything to make it better. I'm telling you. You know, it goes back to that motion that Chris Saunders put in place about the temporary work permit jobs being advertised before they grant them, right? People thought that was something that was against some any one group, but it wasn't. It was just to delay the process to give opportunity for other people who are locally entwined and locally situated that they could have a better opportunity to get in that job, whether it's labor job, no matter what the job was. Because temporary work permits don't only apply to people in the construction industry or the gardening industry or the housekeeping industry or the cashier industry. No, temporary work permits apply across the board. I know I used to work immigration. I used to see all of the various permits. You know how many people come in here to big firms for 2 months, 3 months, they get a temporary work permit. Come in here for 30 days. You got people who came here for a week and get a temporary work permit. Yeah. And then sometime that week turn into a year, and a year turn into status grants. Yeah. Facts. Um, we need some new people to run up there for sure. You find them, and we're gonna put them on the platform, and we're gonna get them going. That's exactly what we need to do because these politicians not cutting it. They're just not cutting it. I don't really care who like it and who don't like it. Anybody who's paid to market a politician will never agree with you if you're saying something contrary to what they're paid to market to do. Trust me. They will set aside their moral beliefs. They will set aside everything. They'll even starve to death if they had to. But at the end of the day, where do we go from a point where things can be better, but are systematically and consistently getting worse? Where do we go from there? Do we continue hiring these people? Like really and truly. Why Miss Juliana O'Connor Conley is a representative for the Cayman Islands in any respect, and why is Mose? They ain't doing nothing. Oh, we got them here in Cayman too. Pile them, pile up. You ever seen when rain fall and it flood? And if you in a yard that had fire ants, those fire ants find a piece, anything that can float, and they pile up on top of that. Yeah, that reminds me of what's happening here now, because the only thing you don't find on that thing that's floating is the person that caused the flooding. Everybody that is subjected to the flood area is the ones that got to find something to float on, and I can tell you, God help the ones that don't find nothing to float on. They're the ones that perish. They're the ones that feel it the most. But when that water dry up, them ants go right back to that mole and that mound that they were in, and as if nothing never happened. And then when the next flood come around, they back out looking for something float, and then we lose a couple more. So our harvest start to dwindle. The sustainability of Caymanian people has dwindled to non-existent. I'm telling you. So when you have politicians who assume that you must accept what they have suggested, they make a sad mistake because, boy, the paradigm shift coming. And it's going to be a huge change in the next election. I can tell you that right now. You know, I'm going to say this thing. I'm going to close with this, obviously, because I think it's important that we highlight these things. And I can speak for it. I can speak from it from experience only because it has happened to me. And I see now where it's creating a huge issue for persons that fall in that category. So I want to bring something to your attention, and I want you all to understand, because you already know how I feel about off-reg and CUC regen project and the numbers. I mean, $1.9 billion dollars, Chris Saunders said that the numbers is what he saw, that came from 350, 600 million to 1.9 billion. The rebuttal of that came from Pat government and DART with a combined response, and they didn't really help. They made things worse, right? And we need to start putting some legal action in place. We need to get petition going around to demand that they retender the regen project in the DART consortium. We have to, because we can't lay down and play dead on this one, ladies and gentlemen. We just can't, right? So these are the things that we need to focus on. And when we look at the cost of all these things, and how they have formalized their political ambitions to try to convince us that this is okay, I just don't. I don't accept that well. I don't receive that well, and I laying down and playing dead, because you're not saddling me with on the debt and on foolishness. That not happening. That not happening. So I want to encourage Chris Saunders to speak more, reveal more, tell us more, and anybody else in that cabinet or anybody else that was involved in that, they need to come out. The people need to know. It's our business. It's important for us to know what's going on, right? You know, you got all these politicians who are in there and they claim they're doing a good. They tell. But the thing is, when you tell yourself over and over that you're doing a good job, you start to believe it, and then you think other people believe it, and then that's just the position that you take. Now, now I now want to get into the whole back and forth about anything. I like to talk about the numbers, because numbers don't lie. Yeah, numbers not gonna lie to you. And I just want to know what plan they have to fixing this consortium. That way I want to know. And who they expect to pay for it. Because you and I are going to be tagged with the responsibility. And when I say you and I, the government, you're going to be tagged with responsibility to pay the consortium to mass burn our garbage. You understand? So if I want to talk about numbers, let's talk about numbers. That waste to energy plant that I saw at the Regen Roadshow is going to need anywhere between 12 to 15,000 tons per day. The Cayman Islands only generate 6 to 800 currently. It could be a bit more now, because that was an old report that I saw. But we talking about $165, $150, somewhere around there, $175 per ton is what they're going to charge the government. So let's just speak hypothetical. If it's 10,000 tons a day and it's $150 a ton. You know how much money that is every day that we got paid to burn our garbage? That's a lot of money, That $1.5 million. So my question is this: who paying $1.5 million a day? Who gonna be paying that? The people. Because the government said we paying it. We paying it. That's us, the people. Now, you all know that garbage is subjected to increase, not decrease. It can only decrease. It can only decrease or reduce if we put recycling laws in place. So, no Mr. why Wayne Pannon hasn't championed a recycling law to this day. He passed a conservation bill that him and the Walker family have been working on since the time of Moses. He passed that on his first dance, 2013. Boom, gone. And now you got people in certain departments creating their own laws as they go along because of this new conservation bill. Facts. So how come you can pass a conservation bill on a blink of an eye, but you haven't even considered putting a recycling law in place as today's date? People, we need to stop accepting the bureaucracy and the foolishness that these politicians tell us. The first thing, whenever you hear a politician always having to react or rebuttal something that was said that he think is misinformation, I've heard Ween said on more times than I've seen him planning the thing from scratch. Oh, I just want to dispel the rumors. I just want to address the rumors. I just want to make the record straight. This all is he's on the defense at all every single time he gets on a public platform. He's trying to explain himself out of something that he heard on the road or people are saying on the road. They're just not saying it on the right road. Yeah. You don't hear them talking bad about him. No. Not one chirp. Not one chirp. When John removed Jennifer Ahern, every media house in this island was down in his throat. Oh, what happened? So when Wayne brought back Jennifer Ahern, how come certain platforms never ask a question as to why? What was the purpose? Don't get it twisted, Wayne was a part of the PPM government, When John ousted her, He was still a member. So don't ever think for a moment that these things are coincidence, There's no coincidence. These things are deliberate, premeditated, concocted in their mind that they're smarter than you. That's why they never address you. Wayne Pannan is the worst politician in Cayman, And right now, Miss Julia, she's running for second. I'm telling you. But what we do, we sit down here, we live in the consequences, we do what we can, and those who have the better ability to survive and hustle are the ones who survive and hustle. But we have those people who can't and don't have the ability. And then that creates a strain on the entire system. But they're not paying attention to none of that. Now, people can say what they want to say, but I can tell you right now, if Wayne Pannan ever want to have a public debate with Mario Rankin, I read it any day of the week. You could wake me up at 2 a.m. in the morning. I not even got to smell coffee. You can wake me up, kidnap me, drag me out, carry me on a public platform, and I'll debate you on any topic you want, including financial service industry, since you think you know more than everybody else about that. I don't know lawyer, I don't know accountant, I don't know banker, I don't know none of those things. But one thing I know for sure is I am better aware and I'm better grounded on what's going on in this island than you are and you ever will be. Because I asked a question a long time ago. Why would a young equity, or I don't know if you were equity, why would a young senior partner leave one of the largest law firms in Cayman? Because you're not 60 yet. And now you've not been working for that law firm now over 15 years. So that means when you retired, you were in your early 40s. So I'm a little baffled. I'm baffled why you exited Walkers. Don't say you had other ambitions, because I can tell you one thing. Your ambition, qualities is not politics. And I know that you're not running again in the next general election. I know that Wayne Pannan is not running in the next general election. And he's not running because he want to do something different. He's not running because he's not getting elected in Newlands again. So all them people you got cutting the side of the roads in Newlands and painting up signs and running around power washing people's house and acting like community creates country, they can't get you elected. I want to know where you was in the 1990s. Oh, I was too busy working. I couldn't come out. Everybody else that contributed to the Savannah Newlands were working too and had less privileges than you. But they found time and they came out and they worked in that community. I never saw you at a senior citizen party until you got into politics. If that now superficial and I mean, people, come on. We need better politicians so we can get better results. I'm telling you. So I can tell you all this. That regen project and the babysitting job that we ain't doing of it, that not gonna work out. Believe me, that not gonna work out. And you all may think that I may have something against Wayne or Jennifer or Julie or anybody. I got something against anybody who is in a position to create a consequence that I and my children are living. And if you're not doing your job, I have the right to say what I want to say. I got a right to speak up and speak out about it. So we need to make sure that whatever we do on this island and whatever we say and where we go is for the best interest of these islands and for our people. I'm telling you. Now, people mightn't like my style, they mightn't like the way we go about things, but I don't really care. Quite honestly, I don't care. Because I'm not doing this because I want you to like me. I'm doing this because I want to create awareness to our younger people who are going to be the next wave of the future, right? And generation now responsible for generation next. And we need to make sure that under no circumstances we allow this foul play that's going on in politics. Makiva said last week he want high school in West Bay, and now this week I hear Jula want $50 million high school in Cameron Brack. And you know I'm got running water for a man water he plants. You know, and you think we don't have a problem? We have a huge problem. All right, I'm gonna check the comments one last time. Jared Avante, I don't believe it's about the age, but rather when people get in, they forget the people. And I'm not saying that young person should be a minister or premier or their first election. Please tell me what's the difference is with current incumbents. They're simply not doing their jobs. No, I agree. The thing is that one of my biggest issues is that we have created this stigma that because it's your first time in politics that you should wait a few terms before you either be a minister or a premier. Are you kidding me? Are you joking? You telling me because I just got elected that mean that I don't have the qualities to lead the country? That shouldn't be the marker. No, it should be all the things that I've done prior to and what my manifesto says and what my abilities are and what the solutions and how I'm gonna accomplish the things that I have in my manifesto. And listen, I've asked politicians many times when they show me the glossy ads, I pick one or two things on it and say, hey, so how you gonna do this? How you plan to do this? Give me your vision because if you're not a part of the elected cabinet, you're going to have a struggle. So if you are on the back bench or on the opposition side and you have something that is meaningful and might need to be done, but when you bring the motion, it's voted down or you don't get enough support for it, is what's the alternative plan? Because in my opinion, anybody that has anything that is needed in our country that is not being implemented by the sitting government, that they bring the motion, I think that if it was me, and I know that it was an important issue, I would go to the people, not just my constituency. I would have a series of meetings in every district, and I would get the support of the people, even in the constituency of the elected members who are in cabinet. I would go in their neighborhood and get their voters to agree. Listen, we need to upgrade this because it's going to create a better environment for students, whatever the case is. I'm speaking hypothetically. So what I would do is I would put the work in to get the approval from the people. And then I would go to the floor and I would say, listen, I'm moving this motion with the support of the people behind me. This is what we need done. Oh, I have a document here that I got some signatories from every one of your constituents that said that this is a good idea. So let's get this passed in the House. That's how I would approach it. I wouldn't just file motions for filing motion's sake so it can go in the Hansard to say, oh well, Mario Rankin filed this motion, but it was voted down. No, 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 no. When I file a motion, that means I believe in it. That means I want to see it through. That means I want to see it be implemented. So therefore, I can go and do the necessary legwork in order to get the necessary support so that that politician who's in the position to pass it can say, gee, there are 900 people in my constituency on this list. We better pass this because they watching this. But that's the approach that I would take, right? Look at J.E. Banks, first time minister, and he's doing stuff based on his previous experience. Hold on. Before, what else you said? Of course, No, Jay doing it. Jay, listen, if there's one person that's doing their job, it's him. I can tell you that right now. He doing his job. So, so you got to remember now, right? You don't have to be in politics to have experience about politics. You understand that, right? And and I think we all can agree that governments are only as good as the civil servants that works in those ministries, right? So there's a lot of reform and a lot of policy changes that need to be done in order to get a better run system. Now, the last thing we want to do is put all of the autonomy in one person's hand. You want to make it have you want to have a clear, a proper distribution of that autonomy. So therefore, that each person have that collective responsibility to see these things through, especially when they have the merits that is going to benefit the general public, right? And it's in the best interest of the island. So when we talking about ministers, because I not see more flip flopping and changing of ministers in my life than I see happening here now. So when you see ministers being adopted or passed off or taken away from different portfolios, you have to ask yourself the question: okay, now that they got that portfolio, what things are going to take priority over other things? And I mean, when Julia was with PPM government, right? When Julia was at the PPM government, did she ask for $50 million school? She only asked for this $50 million school since her nomination now as deputy premier and minister of education. She never asked for no 50 million high school prior to that. So I just want to know what's really happening. That strategic policy plan that's coming out, I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see what their future plans are in the next 2 years leading up to the next general election. Let me tell you something. That's going to be the most anticipated document ever because I'm waiting patiently. So we need to make sure that we don't lose sight of what's happening, and we need to make sure that we get heavily involved with the process. And whether or not people think that it's a waste of time or that it's a long, costly process, a referendum is definitely a way to get ourselves involved. We can be the proverbial 20th member of parliament with Section 72 of the Constitution, and we need to exercise it more. I mean, right now we see where we're going to have a referendum on gambling and marijuana. Some people may think that, oh, that's great. For me, we need to have a referendum on other things that are far more important. You know, why I started to talk about earlier about something that happened that I have experience that happened to me in regards to how they're writing certain policies and it affects people. I'll just get back to that now before I close off, before I forget, because I struggle sometimes in remembering things short term. But I'll tell you this. I look at the ad in the paper for OFREG. They want new board appointments, right? They wanted new members for the OFREG board. And then I go down and I read the list of requirements, the things that you have to have, right? And what's very funny with that, because we know who OFREG falls under now, right? It's under J, but I don't think J was a part of the the things that are listed on there that makes you eligible to apply. Because OFREG is one of the only boards that you are not appointed. You have to apply. They assess your application, and then you're either appointed or you're not appointed, right? Whichever. But I was looking at the criteria, and I smiled to myself, and I say this is definitely the handiwork of Wayne Pannon and probably some of the members of the PPM government like Aldin, because I looked at it, and one of the things said you cannot be convicted of any crime of dishonesty, foreign or domestic. Now that is a cut and paste from the Constitution. And I can tell you that because I experienced that when they retroacted the spent conviction law. And the thing that really blew my mind is that put it you can on that same page there are a plethora of other jobs that government go there in the ministries, right? And no other description or requirement for government job states that you have to be clear of these things. This is not a requirement for the government jobs, but for the off-reg board. My suspicious side of me tells me that I know that was tailor-made for me, just like they did with the Constitution and what they did with the 1998 spent conviction law. And I find that very comical because, and not comical at the same time, because it's basically saying that you as an individual who born and live in the Cayman Islands, now listen to me good, I want you to understand this, what that means. It's basically telling you that you don't have the right to be rehabilitated, that you don't have the right to rehabilitate yourself. Now, that basically sets a precedent that simply says, listen, you can't be rehabilitated and hold this post. But yet, the 1998 spent conviction law clearly outlines in clear English that if you have gone through the spent conviction process, that you shall not be held accountable or held against to hold public office or work or gainful employment. It's on there on the 1998 spent conviction law, right? So a person that may have made a mistake when they were younger and have a conviction of that nature, who have now been fully rehabilitated, probably been working in institutions and working in society for the last 25 years, 30 years, whatever, good standing, good behavior, no more incidents. That person cannot apply for that. They can't, because their rehabilitation is not good enough to apply to that or even be a member of parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, understand what I'm saying. That requirement doesn't speak about drug dealers. It doesn't speak about hit and run. It don't talk about other offenses that also questions your character or your judgment. It don't. It just talk about that specific line item. So I think that we need to relook at all of the things that we have that are instituting one's ability to participate or not. And I think when we look at this particular when we look at this particular instant, it's just a carryover from the election law. I mean, not election law, sorry, the constitution requirement. That's all it is. Experience is good. It adds value. However, it is whether you have a solution and are able to bring them. I agree to, and the thing is, people need to stop. People need to stop assuming that because you don't have a bachelor's degree in certain fields that you don't have the ability to understand it. Believe me when I tell you. You know, a couple of years ago, I was reading an article, and it said the smartest person, the smartest person deemed in the Caribbean, right? Smartest person. You know where he went to school? You're from Trinidad. You know where he went to school? He didn't go to school. He was home taught by his parents, but he was the smartest person in the Caribbean. So buildings and walls don't teach children. People teach children. It's the methodology. It's how they go about it. It's the attention that they show to that person. So we need to be very careful on how we call someone dumb or stupid or uneducated, because if you don't have a high school diploma or a bachelor or a PhD or some degree from anywhere, doesn't say that you don't know or that you can't do or you can't accomplish. The top 5 richest people in the world have dropped out of college. 2 out of them dropped out of high school. Now, I'm not saying that to encourage people to drop out of college or don't finish high school. I'm not saying that. I'm just simply saying that the system is not necessarily your savior. Sometimes you can work on the outside of that system and be just as beneficial and profitable for you, right? It's how we measure success and where we measure success. So we need to understand those things before we get down this path by thinking that, oh, well, you underachievers simply because you haven't been able to climb the corporate ladder that is being gated from you. I mean, I don't really care about any of that stuff. What I care about and what I focus on is the resilient ability that we have as Caribbean people and Caymanians in more particular, and the things that we have been able to overcome in the past. Now, there are some things that are building now that I'm not sure if we're going to be able to overcome these things. Financial ruins, self-generated wealth, personal ability to do for yourself. These are all the things that are disappearing. We can't we can't seem to get a grasp on or a handle on these things. We can't do it. And for us to sit down and assume that it's going to fix itself. And again, I keep talking about it. I talk about all these things and I try to lay out the layman terms of it so people understand. When I broke down that regen project, I had a person call me after the show and say, Mario, I didn't really understand it like that, but now that you said it like that, man, that really puts things into question. I said, look, how is it that we're going to give the DART consortium our landfill, pay them to burn our garbage, then allow them to sell the energy from the burn to CUC at a reduced cost, where CUC can then turn around and charge us back for it when they put it in the grid? Let me repeat that. Our landfill is now being handed over to the DART consortium for a regen project that's going to put a waste to burn energy. No recycling law in place, because recycling law reduces the garbage, reduces the demand, compromises the overall plan, right? Government has agreed in principle to pay X amount of dollars per ton for each ton that they burn. They'll generate energy from that in a waste to energy plant. So waste to energy plant is a plant that burns garbage, that spins turbines, that generate energy, that sells to the grid. That's how it works. For those of you who don't know what a waste energy plant is. CUC have the exclusive right for distribution. So the reason why Regen have to sell that generated energy to CUC is because they don't have the right to sell it to no one else. So when they get the energy from the burn, by law, they have to sell it to CUC. Then CUC going to plug it in the grid at, and I'm going to speak hypothetically. I'm going to speak pure hypothetical numbers, but this will paint a picture. So let's just say that Regen is generating 20 megawatts, right? And then they're selling to CUC for 12 cents per kilowatt. Now, megawatts and kilowatts are different, right? But 20 megawatts is probably, and I stand corrected, it's probably a couple 100,000 kilowatts or a couple million kilowatts, somewhere around that region. So if Regen sells the kilowatt to CUC for 12 cents per kilowatt, CUC resells it at 20 cents. That's 8 cents more. These are all hypothetical numbers. But CUC will buy it at a reduced rate, put it back on the grid and sell it at a markup. And guess who pays the bill? Me and you. So what I am saying is that we're going to take our landfill, give it to DART consortium. They're going to bring in a foreign company to put in our waste to energy. They're going to generate energy. They got methane. Well, I'm not talking about the methane yet. Then they're going to sell it to DART for their ROI, because we paying for them, we paying for them to burn the garbage. This is where I get conflicted, right? Because if we paying for you to burn the garbage already a tipping fee, then why are you reaping the benefits of the kilowatts that it's generating to be pumped to the grid? That should go back into government coffers. But that's just an added plus for them. So we pay you to burn the garbage. You burn the garbage, you generate energy. You sell it to CUC, you collect that and the money for the garbage that you're burning. And CUC turn around and resell it to us. It's a lose-lose situation for us, and a win-win situation for CUC, and a win-win situation for DART Consortium. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem. That's a problem. That's not a good working model. It's poor. And then when you look at DART Consortium, it ain't no small people working on that. None at all. So we're giving them the landfill, paying them to manage the garbage. They're going to sell the energy that is generated from the burning of the garbage to CUC. CUC going to turn around and mark it up and sell it back to us. They all win, we lose. Oh, sorry, we don't lose. Because you know what they're going to dangle in front of us and tell us that we're getting? Oh, you're getting a solution for the landfill. We're cleaning it up. We're putting some trees on it. We're planting some grass. That's what we're getting. Sorry, my mistake. While we footing the $1.9 billion, $2 billion bill. Yeah. And the methane. The methane is energy too because it's flammable, it burns. You can run generators, you can run plants to generate current. But I'm wondering if Dart going to use the methane to power his whole city. Maybe that's what he planned to do. And when he do that, that's going to increase the volume of renewable energy, and we're going to still pay for that too. So we're not only giving him the methane to power his city, we're going to be paying for the absence of him being on the grid that consumes the fuel that runs his city. Oh my God, this is got to be the worst possible scenario ever. But yet we got Jennifer Ahorn, and we got Wayne Pannon spearheading this project. We doomed. So we the people got to step in with a petition, a matter of national importance, get the signatures, bring this to referendum. Or the government can just take the high road and do the country a solid and just put it back out to tender. There are many solutions you can put in and out of the landfill that can solve the problem. Number one, a full comprehensive recycling law in place right now. It's not brand new. A lot of countries around the world got recycling programs in place, and they got it by law. It's the law. So you're not inventing anything, and you're not reinventing the wheel. You just find a model that works for us and implement it. Pass the anti-bullying law, Wayne. Go into cabinet this morning and pass the anti-bullying law. But you know what that means? You got to sever ties with your mouthpiece in the public because nobody not bigger bully than them. Yeah, that compromises you, don't it? Oh yeah, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, one of Wayne's business partners is a part of the DART Consortium. You didn't know that? Yeah, one of his partners is a member of the DART Consortium. You can't make this stuff up. Wayne is conflicted on every corner when it comes to this ISM regen landfill project. He needs to remove himself from it. But I don't hear him talking about that. Make sure I got you. Don't worry. I gotta make sure I sign that petition. I gotta be every way with that. I might get the support of all them paper Caymanians and residence holders and all them people who came out and helped us with CPR because you see they love a Wayne, you see. But I don't need them. We don't need them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna take a moment here now. We gotta go, but I'll be back on Wednesday. Um, I wanna talk about this Provolic system I had introduced back to Kirk Tibbett before he came out of politics. It was a 1 megawatt solar system that I wanted to implement for government. That system would have offset the cost of street lights and all the money that we pay to CUC for street lights. And I remember Kirk saying he would put it out to tender, a project that I produced, But I said no problem. I said because my main goal is to save you guys some money so you can take that $9 million a year that you're spending on lights and parks in Cayman and put that into education, healthcare, and maybe some housing or whatever. But it didn't go anywhere because Kurt didn't feel like because it wasn't something that was that was concocted or dreamt up in his camp that they didn't want to do it. And I can tell Kirk that to his face. Tristan Hydes wanted a meeting too. But again, civil servants are the ones who run government. Politicians are only as good as their civil servants that are in those ministries. Facts. You call a minister right now, ask him something. I need to talk to my chief officer. So if the country failing, every chief officer in Cayman responsible. Facts. So politicians not only the heads that got rule, incompetent, derelict civil servants need to be fired too. I ain't talking about probation, fired. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't make no apology for what I say in regards to useless politicians and useless civil servants who just run the system dry and use it for their own personal benefits. I'm tired of that now. Because if it's one thing that never changes is the civil servants, governments change all the time. And why is it that we got a consistent issue with the consistent ministries every single term? That means the problem don't really lie with the ministers all the time. It lies in that civil service. We gotta start throwing some peroxide over there and see who fraud up. That's what we need to do. Taking some more strategic looks into the civil service and the chief officers and everybody who fall below them who need to be doing their job. Because they better pray. They better pray that I don't get my way in regards to constitutional reform, because the first thing we put in place is that civil servants can be fired. Oh yeah. And Franz Madison in charge of the civil servants. Why you think Dr. Lee got to go in the way party? Dr. Lee got to go in the way party because France didn't see the need to reprimand the custom officers who were complicit in that case. It's called protection of our own. No, of own of what though? That's the question you need to ask yourself. I want to know how you can be a chief officer, but yet you've been named in a certain case for misuse of public funds in a company that you used to be involved with, but yet you're a chief officer. Protected by who? Could only be France. He the one that in charge of all that. When the PPM fired Jennifer Ahern, where you think she landed? She parachuted right in his camp. And now Wayne come back and pluck her out. And here we are paying the price. But when we put this new constitutional reform in place, people like that will get fired. And this whole thing about deputy governor, we got to put term limits on that. Attorney generals, term limits. Yeah. We can't make you sit and grow comfortable in a system that depends on you heavily to create the consequences of sustainability for the people of these countries, of these islands, sorry. I don't care what nobody say, The Attorney General sat down and watched Wayne Pannon and his government pass a law that told people you can't get a permit unless you are vaccinated with a vaccine that don't work and a vaccine that has now proven kill people. Facts. I want to know how Wayne feel at night and all of the ministers who supported that stupid law. How want to feel, how they can live with themselves knowing that people have died from this vaccine that you force them to get because they won't create a better livelihood for them and their families. You see people who had cancer that went into remission, when they took that vaccine, the cancer came back and killed them. Oh, the science, Mary. We followed the goddamn science and it led us into a brick wall full of casualties. That's where that science took us. Where Dr. Fauci is, where CDC, where all these people that were out there parading around saying that this was the best thing. Where they is now. But yet Wayne and them sitting down, they haven't repealed that law. But they repealed they repealed Chris Saunders' motion to put out ads in the paper for a temporary work permit. You repealed that, but you didn't repeal a ridiculous, inhumane law that discriminate and coerce people into, bro. Ladies and gentlemen, I gotta end there before I blow a fuse up in this place. I gotta end right there. Because I'm just tired of the hypocrisy. I don't know how Wayne could live with himself day to day, knowing that he put that law in place and he hasn't repealed it yet. Ridiculous. And Sam sat down there and sanctioned that law with them. He no better than them. He much to blame for that as the rest of them. Trust me on that. And the governor, thank God he gone. Piece of garbage he is. All on about, I like you, Mr. Roper. I like you. Oh, we're so sad. It's sad to see you going. I would have chartered a private jet to get you out of here. When you got on British Airways, I prayed to God that plane didn't break down. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let me try go. See you on Wednesday. Don't forget to like our page. Share it. If you don't have Facebook, you can watch us on YouTube. Coming live to you straight in your living room. Just go to YouTube. If you have a smart TV, just click on your menu button, scroll over to YouTube. When YouTube comes up, go to the search bar, type in word of mouth, and then scroll across until you see my face or our logo. Click on it, and then you got the show live. You don't need no cable boxes. You just need internet. All smart TVs have the capability to broadcast our shows live. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your Monday for those of you who actually went to work and didn't call in sick. I'll see you on Wednesday. Be safe.
We got to break Cerebra up. Cerebra is a cartel.
We have to own our grid because we paid for it. You had it too long. That's number one. We need to control the purchasing of fuel because we pay for it. We should be in charge of buying it. The fuel companies, you better buckle up too. Jackson Point Pipeline have to be reverted back to the ownership of the country. Oh, Mario, you can't tell them how to operate their business. Well, yes, we can. Having this idea that you're going to impose what's best because of what the law tells you can do will cause an uprising in this country that you've never seen before. My children are going to be saddled with the debt of a billionaire so that he can have his name printed on everything we got around here. Because let me tell you something, this is Dart Island.